My name is Mander, and today is the 13th of January 2015. My full name is actually, my name was Mander Singh.
Right.
But when I was growing up, Jayaprakash Narayan had made a call that we should drop those parts of our name which reflect your caste or your community. So I dropped
The
Singh, and that's why I go by the name Mander. I was 29. I was an IAS officer posted in a district called Indore in Madhya Pradesh. I was in Indore itself. I mean, one heard that there was this completely kind of a military operation in a place of religious worship, which was far was a completely inappropriate response to a real problem. I mean, I have no sympathy whatsoever with violent militancy, least of all with the Khalistani movement. And I do believe that the kind of brutalization that happens when I've seen, I'm a very strong believer in non-violence. And what had happened in the Golden Temple was something that needed to be fought against, but it could not, but not in the way that an invading army deals with an external enemy. And there were, as Operation Black Thunder showed a few years later, by a simple process of starving them out, they could have been a much less violent way of dealing with the problem. So I think it was a huge mistake and reflected a certain kind of public arrogance by people in power and huge miscalculation as well. See, just for full disclosure, I'm born in a Sikh family, but I'm an agnostic. And my engagement with the whole question of communal violence and also state violence has been very deep. I mean, I think it started, 1984 in many ways shaped the course of my later life. But it has never been in my capacity as a person of a particular community, but as a person who believes in justice and human rights. So I've been engaged with the Sikh survivors, but equally and much more so actually with the survivors of 2002 in Gujarat, survivors there. And in fact, I came back just yesterday from Assam, where I went as a part of a fact-finding into the attacks on the Adivasi tribal communities, the T tribes as they call it, the most recent massacre that we've had in India. About 80 of them were killed by Boer militants, and I had gone there. In fact, I just came back last night. So I continue to be engaged with the questions of hate violence, targeted hate violence, and of state violence, and in that capacity it grieved me greatly. I was, as I said, I was posted as additional collector. That's the sort of second. I was a young officer of the Indian Administrative Service, and I was posted as what was called an additional collector, which is the head of the district administration is called the district magistrate or the district collector, and I was the additional district collector at that time in Indore. As an official, you're responsible for maintaining law and order. So as soon as we heard the stories of Mr. Gandhi's assassination, the circumstances in which it happened, we were all extremely alert about what could happen, and stories started pouring in of violence. And the city was extremely tense. It had a large Sikh population. But the next morning, I remember early at 6 in the morning, the district magistrate and the superintendent of police called all the officers and said that there was an expectation that there will be extensive violence, possibility of it. However, they gave an instruction that no force would be used unless they personally sanctioned it. And then they, around 12 in the afternoon, I remember, the violence started across the city. And I was out on the streets and I saw things that people being burnt alive, the stories that we know, violence, arson. I'd never seen anything like it in my life. And here I was also responsible to protect life and property. And so for a couple of hours, I kept, directing the police to act, but the police was extremely reluctant to act, and they also had the instructions not to act until they were directed to do so by the district magistrate and the police, superintendent of police, who were not to be found. And it was the era long before mobile phones and so on, communication. It was impossible, and this was really how, it was quite clear to me that there was a political desire for the violence to continue, and that was completely unacceptable to me. Although I was a very junior young officer, I tried to then quickly recall what I had learned in my training as a civil servant, and the training, the Indian CRPC, the Criminal Procedure Code, is very clear that the senior most magistrate on the spot has the right to decide about the use of force and also call in the army. And so I said, the only way that I could stop this is to call in the army. And since I couldn't find the district magistrate, I was the senior most magistrate on the spot, and I said I would take responsibility and call in the army. So the cantonment was close by a place called Mahu, the cantonment, and I rang up the general there, and I said, sir, please come in with all your forces. So he said, are you prepared to put it in writing? And I said, yes, by all means. And he said, my colleagues are ready, and within another hour they were available. And then I thought hard, what am I now supposed to say? And what I'm underlining is that I was just a complete greenhorn, and even then it was possible to control it if one chose. And I just said that you have to impose curfew under all circumstances, give one warning, and otherwise shoot at sight. Make sure that everybody is sent indoors. And the columns went out. I went with one of the columns, and it was. And the army, if it has clear instructions, functions very surgically and efficiently. And it was very painful. Later, as a result of my orders, 25 people were killed for violating curfew. But I recognize that in a situation like a communal riot, it is probably the kindest thing that you can do. And so I, in another hour, an hour and a half after that, and full curfew was imposed. And in a sense, the city was saved from further violence. And that is why, it's something that has stayed with me for years and years, and in some way affected the course of my life, because I realized many things. Firstly, this completely reprehensible political motivation to use religious communal hatred at moments like this to gain political benefits. And we see that it has continued to happen. It happened then, it happened right through the Babri Masjid period. It happened in Bombay. It happened in Gujarat in the aftermath of violence in 2002. That was a point at which I quit the civil service actually, because I realized that if we keep seeing this kind of massacre openly organized by the state, then we lose everything that is most precious as a people. And, and the fact that if even one officer decides that he or she will just perform on duty, and I often said no riot that can go on for more than 24 hours without the active complicity of the state. But it's not even 24 hours, it was really 6 hours in this case, with somebody who was completely inexperienced, had never seen a riot in his life. And so I saw that, and then I saw all the suffering that happened. I organized the relief camps, again, it opened up something that I continue to do with my life now, which is to work with survivors of victim violence, because I see how the pain, the suffering, the enormity of if you lose your family members because of a riot or an earthquake, you can still live with it. But if you lose them simply because of the hatred of somebody, because of their identity, and your own neighbors turn against you, it's a pain that somehow doesn't seem to just, people can't deal with it, it doesn't go away. So that is really what I encountered then, and I've continued to encounter in the decades that have followed. No one in my very immediate family was affected, but a significant number of friends of the family, people who we know. But at that time, of course, as people, although my Sikh identity is not obvious, people would, got to know, and people were so frightened, people would keep calling, and we hid people in our house at home. My parents were fortunately visiting at that time, so they were at home, and so that was a relief. And yeah, so I know people affected, but no one who's been very close to me. Unlike partition, where there was our whole family was affected. The violence was being committed clearly by the political leadership of the Congress party everywhere. It was with their, and here I saw it right at the ring site, that there was a political message that the violence should be allowed to continue. And the fact that most officers agree to comply with instructions of this kind is what finally broke my heart, and when in 2002 I decided to, I wrote the piece that this is Kenya's state-sponsored massacre, in which my own colleagues across have blood on their hands, and I wrote a piece as a serving IAS officer. The first piece which said that 2002 was a state-sponsored massacre, and it was really this idea, and having seen 1984 and saying that if we're going to continue to do this, then everything falls apart, everything that I hold most precious. Yeah, a lot of these questions will sort of wouldn't apply to me. I was an officer responsible for controlling and protecting people.
Right.
Clearly, I did. I've publicly spoken. I worked out sort of. I'm a public voice around criminal violence, and I speak about. And when largely to talk about. A lay person outside imagines that there can be some role of the state. I just try to underline it with this experience and also my later experience about handling other riots. That that actually riots, however large they are, cannot continue unless the state wants them to. 1984, I think, absolutely has influenced the course of the rest of my life, because I saw directly the consequences of hate violence and a complicit state machinery. And therefore, in the riots that I personally handled in later district charges, because after 1984, in Madhya Pradesh, where I worked in the districts, that was the period when the whole Babri Masjid agitation had started, which led to a long period of very intense communal mobilization. This time it was not Sikhs and Hindus, but it was Muslims and Hindus. And therefore, it influenced me very deeply to take very strong stands wherever I worked in terms of handling communal rights with impartiality, ensuring the people that it is controlled in the shortest possible time, that the guilty are actually caught and punished, that impunity which normally happens does not take place, that the survivors are assisted to the best extent that we can. And finally, when 2002 happened, which was a massacre of the same variety and scale as what had happened in Delhi in 1984, and to see that happen all over again, I wasn't serving in Gujarat, I was in Madhya Pradesh. I was an officer of Madhya Pradesh. I was on leave at that time, working with an NGO. You're allowed to, so in that capacity, I'd gone in to see whether I could extend humanitarian assistance in the camps. And very quickly, because I've seen and understand riots, I realized that it wasn't a riot, it was another state-sponsored massacre of the same kind of scale and brutality. And then I said that this is enough, and so I wrote a piece called Cry My Beloved Country as a serving IS officer, and I published it. It circulated, in fact, all over the world, and I also published it in the Times of India. And then I put in my papers a few days later, and have continued to work among survivors of violence in many locations. In Gujarat, for many years, I in fact relocated there. So there was this, as I said, this bureaucratic imagination of putting all of the widows, working class widows from many of the slum peripheries who were attacked in one place. And what I found, and I've written a longer study and a piece in PW as well, comparing the widows and saying that if you're stricken by hate violence, but also are burdened by other disadvantages of being working class, of low caste, non-literate, all sorts of other disadvantages piling on, it's much harder for the healing for you to move on. And so, but the enormity of suffering that I saw at Tilak Vihar with the surviving widows was unbelievable. I sometimes say that it's the most dense site of human suffering, I think, that there is probably in this whole city, is in that small tenement. Because, see, first you have the women who were nothing had prepared them to stand alone and to look after their families in the way that they had to. Their children growing up, initially, since there were no fathers, they thought this is how families are, then slowly understanding what really had happened to their fathers, some of them children a little older and carrying no memories. And then at some point of time, the drug mafia in Delhi used that as a place for drug carrying and selling as well as a safe location. And so what has happened over the years is that the next generation, especially the boys who small boys at that time had grown into middle-aged men in their 30s, late 30s, middle 30s. Overwhelming number among them have severe mental illness problems, have not been able to cope, very high addiction to drugs, which has really intensified the suffering of the widows a great deal. And I've always believed, especially when I've looked at conflict sites, that women are the much stronger gender than men by far. So it's largely the daughters-in-law who are still somehow trying to now hold on to the family. They don't work. They somehow trying to cope, but it's very, very hard. So we've been trying to help. When the widow said that, apart of course from the suffering because of failures of justice, they just can you just get our kids some kind of work, and so we tried to get about 100 of them some kind of jobs, training, some psychosocial support, but we're trying to sort of concretize that into an ongoing activity because nothing seems to change for them in terms of the intensity of human suffering. It happened. The chronological and the causal linkage with Operation Blue Star and the devastation, the sense of grief, and the killing of Mrs. Gandhi by her bodyguard, and the consequences of that. And that's of course obviously factually true. But I think that we have, right from the days of the partition riots, we've seen political mobilization around religious identity, and the fact that it is politically beneficial. So the present government has come to power again on the back of a similar kind of criminal mobilization, and so it is really because it is, on the one hand because 84 happened, because for the same reason that 2002 happened, is that on the one hand political parties have found it politically, you can reap a political harvest, the largest majority ever since independence happened really post the 84 riots. Likewise, Mr. Narendra Modi after 2002 was able to come back to power, largely riding on the back of this communal polarization. So on the one hand it happens because of that, on the other hand it happens because public officials are complicit in enabling this to happen. So those are the two major reasons. I feel a sadness that many of us get engaged with these issues primarily on the basis of our identities. So I see a lot of my own Sikh relatives in my larger extended family feel great anguish for the survivors, about the survivors of 84, but they feel no empathy with the survivors of 2002. And in fact, many of them feel that I'm taking on the wrong side of the battle. And I have often tried to explain to them that precisely because we have seen so closely what a minority undergoes when the state is malafide and attacks you on the basis of your minority identity. And so more than anyone else, we should build solidarities with those who are suffering it today. But it's really sad that in fact the same political game of dividing people on religious identity also create walls on our capacities for empathy. So I'm engaged on this issue not because I happen to have been born in a Sikh family, but because I believe in justice.